You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. I'm your host, Lindsay Schiss, and also a therapist at Therapy Utah. We are here to discuss your questions about mental health and relationships. And today we are doing another episode on relationships. And I have with me Lauren Claus. Lauren, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes. So Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourselves for those listeners that haven't met you yet.
Totally. So I've been with Therapy Utah for a little over 2 years. I've worked in private practice. I work in a rehab as well. And I love talking about relationships.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
I wanted to have you for this question because Lauren is actually engaged right now.
I am.
So I feel like you are the perfect person to address this question. So we'll go ahead and get started with the question, and then we'll jump into it. Okay. So the question is, we'll just begin. My partner and I are thinking about getting engaged, but we have very different communication styles and sometimes struggle to resolve conflicts. We're considering premarital therapy, but part of me worries it means we're already in trouble and have problems. Is therapy before marriage a good idea, or is it a red flag that we actually need it? Okay, Lauren, so give us your hot take. Is it a good idea, or is it a red flag?
I am 100% pro going to therapy before making a commitment to each other. Okay. And I say that because I think it's really typical for us nowadays to watch movies with relationships where these two people meet and it's love at first sight and it's perfect and they click 100% of the time. And it just looks like it's a story. And I want to be realistic that that's not really common for a lot of people. A lot of people meet, they are clunky and awkward, or they get into a relationship and it's hot off the gate, or it's not, and it's a slow burn. And it's really hard to get two people just all of a sudden 100% click within just meeting with each other. So to me, it makes sense that this person is coming from a standpoint of, I feel really concerned that we don't have the same communication styles. And also I want to validate the fear of, okay, but if we go to therapy, then that means there's already a problem. Yeah. And I just don't think that's true. I actually think it's very smart and it's very proactive to get ahead of the game, acknowledging we don't necessarily see eye to eye. And that's also okay. We want to figure out how we can both meet in the middle with each other.
Nice. So is there ever a time, because as you were talking, I thought, obviously therapist to therapist, we believe in therapy. So premarital therapy, the biggest commitment you're going to make, why wouldn't we do therapy? That makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. However, there may be times where it might be a red flag. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you think of a time where a couple where you're going, actually, this could be a problem, right? Yeah. And I'm considering couples that are already having major struggles and that there's some maybe fundamental value differences and things that are problematic. Tell me about that. Give me your thoughts on maybe when we might be concerned that maybe there's some bigger issues and that this partnership is going to be difficult.
Yeah. So I would say maybe the red flag is if both of these people are on different wavelengths or terms of why we're going to therapy. So oftentimes I'll get couples in my office where one wants to be really proactive and talk through everything that they want to work on and have goals, and then you kind of get the vibe, or maybe they are honest and straightforward of, I'm just going here because my partner wants me to. And right off the bat, you're already at two totally different starting points of why are we here? What are we looking to work on? And that can make it really difficult to navigate and be on the same level, especially when it comes to values, long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in the relationship in 10 years? So to me, right, a red flag could be if I feel I have to force my partner to come. They don't seem proactive enough. They kind of are yeah, sure, we can try it, whatever. I only think this really works if both partners are really committed and have kind of the same idea of what's the purpose of us going to therapy? How are we going to benefit this? It's not meant to be a chore, and it's not meant to be something that you just cross off a list.
Yes. So when you said that, it made me think, more often than not, when I have couples in my office, it's the same thing. I have one that's really excited, wants to be there, and the other one that not so much. Yeah. However, it's a little different when you're in couples therapy because there is a problem. There's something going on, right? There's often one that feels a little more, okay, I'm ready to be here. I'm ready to work through it. And another one that feels, oh, I'm going to get slaughtered here. I'm going to be all my weaknesses are going to be in front of this person, and it's going to be in front of lights. And I don't like that. But I think it's different when we're looking at it from a proactive standpoint, that we are looking at how can we be better going forward, going into this, right? So I like that just the awareness of maybe where your partner is at with that, and the comfort level might be something to consider. So we do see that there's a rise of premarital therapy. Or have you heard a lot of this happening?
I have, actually. And I think this kind of maybe goes with the trend of people getting married later on in life rather than like super soon. And there's nothing wrong with either. But I think the trend lately that they've been showing statistically is people are getting married older, later in life, and they're also doing more premarital counseling. And I think that's because, one, people are really trying to make sure that the people that they meet and they commit to have a better chance of not ending in divorce, right? Unfortunately, statistics show that marriages end 50-50. There's a 50% chance that you might get divorced from your partner. And I don't know if it's just like my generation that we finally caught up with, like, wow, it's kind of a big toss up, right? Maybe we want to lower the statistic. Maybe we want to try and be more proactive in like the person that I'm creating kids with, or maybe just signing on like as a life partner. I want to make sure that I'm with them for life if that's what I'm choosing, right? I want to try and make sure that I have the best chance of success.
Yes. So as you're thinking about that, what do you think, what role does premarital therapy play? I mean, if I were a premarital therapist, which to be honest, I've never done premarital therapy or counseling in that regard, what would you say would be important for couples to discuss in premarital therapy?
Intimacy. That's a big one. I often feel like a lot of the work that at least I do with couples does boil down to intimacy. And a lot of the times people are not on the same page. They have a lot of resentment. They have a lot of issues communicating about, what does intimacy mean? How often are we having it? What are the different types of intimacy? Unfortunately, a lot of the times, and one partner is more, I need to feel safe and I need to feel secure and I need to feel like emotional connection in order to have intimacy. And then another person is in the relationship is more physical driven. And so right off the bat, we're already on different sides of the coin. And then we're also not talking about it and we're being silent and we're just sitting in the relationship kind of knowing something doesn't feel right, but we're scared to talk about it. And so premarital therapy and counseling is a perfect place to kind of sort that out and also just be able to talk about it and not feel like, okay, this is so weird, we're going to talk about sex or cuddling or how to be there like for our partner emotionally to create safety in the relationship.
Yes. And it's interesting, as you were saying that, I thought, gosh, it's interesting that we don't feel safe. And yet when you're dating and you're getting ready to marry, you are putting your best foot forward. You want this person to be like, this is my person all day, right? And you want to feel that way about them. And so I think sometimes that can create a barrier from us having these hard conversations that can feel a little bit like, oh no, I don't want this to be a problem or a deal breaker. And so if we can have these conversations with a third party that can help us navigate, I can't imagine why that wouldn't be helpful, right? Yeah. What other conversations would you encourage couples to talk about?
Partnership and what that means. And a lot of the times, I think this goes into everyone has their own idea of like what they want in a relationship, what role they play. And there might be some times when you're going through life where, when you first get married, your role and your partnership may look different than when you start having kids or when you age 10 years. Like, life is constantly moving and we're constantly growing in these relationships with our partner. And so we have to have consistent conversations of, hey, like, this is the role that I have. There's something wrong with it. I need more help. I actually would prefer to do X, Y, and Z instead of what I've been doing for the past 10 years. And so even talking about like what it means to have a partnership, how to help each other out, how to be able to have tension when you're actively running around with the kids, but you're still a team. A lot of the times we forget about the team aspect in a relationship. And when life gets hard, you need to have your team member there to support you and you know exactly what roles you guys play.
Yeah, I think that's so important. as you talk about partnerships. Like sometimes we just go into it and think, of course, this is what a husband does or the man does. This is what, the woman does, or whatever is happening is what we have grown up seeing, maybe what we believe should happen. And that may not be what our partner they've experienced, right?
Yeah.
It may be very different. And so there might be assumptions there that might be very different than actually what we believe should happen or what we would like to happen. Yeah. And here's the other piece. What if we grew up in an environment that was really not great? Right. What if we grew up and saw a marriage that wasn't very functional? Well, we also come with some deficits, right? And we also come with a lot of good things as well. But like we want to create a partnership that is the partnership we want, not just the partnership we've seen or what we think we should do, but no, what do we want?
Yeah.
And I think premarital therapy requires us to actually get curious about that and do some work around that instead of just getting into it and going, oh my word, what in the world? How did this happen? And why did they assume this? And right. And then we're cleaning it up on the back end. Why not do it on the front end?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. Good. So what are some common misconceptions about therapy before marriage that might prevent couples from considering doing this?
If we have to go to therapy, we're not a right fit. We're trying to force something to work. And that was kind of like, put into this question of, I feel like if we have to go to therapy before we're even married, like there's already a problem. And I just don't think that's true. I mean, there definitely might be some problems that come up, but at the end of the day, you're still seeking help to figure out, how do we navigate this together? How do we grow as a couple? Yeah. So to me, I would say that that's a great thing to be able to do. And the thing is, if you go to premarital therapy and you figure out you're not a good fit, okay,
congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Right?
Like,
I mean, devastating, but congratulations, because you're figuring out before.
Yeah, and that's information you deserve to know, right, about your partner. So I think either way, you get information and you sift through things that you need to think about so that you can make informed decisions for yourself going forward.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's informed decisions. Yeah. And I think it can feel scary because what if there is information that is a deal breaker? What if there's some values that we just do not see this in the same way? And that could be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But you know what? Why not have a deal breaker before we have all these other commitments to each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say, I'm not trying to be callous in that, but boy, it makes a lot of sense that we get as much information as we can before we're going deeper into commitment and children and right, all of those things. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. So as you think of premarital therapy, is there any way that you think it can help couples in their communication or disagreements? What do you think?
100%. I actually think the reason why like going to premarital counseling can be really helpful in terms of communication is because you have a third perspective and a third party there to actually like witness half the time what your communication style is like in the room. And so this is where I also want to give like a little predisposition of, because I think a common fear that maybe, I mean, this might be stereotypical, but I think a lot of men get scared to go to therapy when they're in a relationship because they're scared that the therapist is going to side with the female or the other partner in the relationship.
Sure.
And I want you guys to know that, like, I mean, of course there's good and bad therapists out there, but if you find like a good therapist that you genuinely like vibe with, that you feel safe with, like they're going to do their absolute best to make sure that they're unbiased and that they're giving accurate depictions of what they're noticing when you guys are practicing communicating in the room, or when, there's a disagreement that you guys come forward with and say, hey, we need help navigating this with you. Like as a therapist, our job is to say, okay, show me what's going on. And then as a therapist, you get a really good like outlook and you can see in the room exactly how they're responding, what their body language is saying. And that is the best way, because a lot of the times when we're showing up in the relationship or we get defensive or we're in an argument, we're not always noticing how we're coming across, right? It's very instinctual. It's very out of habit. And so it can be really helpful to have somebody like kind of be a fly on the wall and say, did you notice what was going on with your body language? Actually, the way that you said this can be perceived as this. So I think it not only helps with communication, but it actually gives you really good insight on just yourself and how you're showing up in the relationship that you may not be able to see previously.
Oh, that's so valuable. How you show up in the relationship. And often we don't know that. We don't have a mirror into ourselves, right? Or even our tone or our body language. And that's a job of a therapist to say, hey, wait a minute. I see that you really need connection here, or you're needing to be seen and heard. Can I help you to maybe rephrase that? Can I help you to talk to your partner a little differently so you can get what you're actually after, right? So I also appreciate what you said is what happens in the room. As you were talking about that, I really thought about Irvin Yalom, who talks about recognizing what's happening in the room between a couple or an individual, that our jobs as therapists is to see, this is actually how this is playing out. Be aware of what's happening, because what you're seeing is a little sampling of probably what's going on behind closed doors, right? Yeah. So I love that third party that's not there to judge, but just there to help, to be an objective source of information, can be really valuable. And, I think it's really important to remember, it's a sign that you care about building a stronger, healthier relationship, and not that there are problems, right?
Yes.
I think that mindset is really important, that shift. And that shift is not always easy to come by.
No, it's
right?
not. No.
So how do you create that shift, that we're here because we're good, but we want to be better? How do you create that shift? And what if your partner doesn't agree with that?
I think the number one thing that I push my clients towards is just at least being authentic and honest, right? And as a therapist, I think it's a great reminder at the end of the session when maybe a couple has had a disagreement in the room and they're actively working on how to show up better, right? They're using the skills and the tools that we've talked about in previous sessions to also end the session with some hope and hey, you guys just did a really great job here. I know that this was hard. I know that this was challenging. I know you may not feel the best, but I also want to emphasize the growth that I've seen in this room, or give them tools of how they could take what they've done in the room and then also practice it outside, because really the progress that gets made in therapy are the things that happen outside of the room. The homework, the quote unquote homework that you get, that's really where the magic happens. And so I just think that that's something that therapists, maybe this is a reminder if a therapist is listening, and it's it's okay to give your partners that are in the room with you hope. Yes. And then also advising them to be honest. You made the example of let's say that the one partner really isn't on the same page and doesn't seem to be in alignment with another partner. Be honest about that. Be authentic. Have integrity with your word. If that's really what you're feeling, that's okay. Create a safe space where people can disagree and let it be known that that doesn't mean that divorce is on the brink or you guys are going to break up, but just be able to understand that that's where we're both at. And we're not on the same page, and that's okay. Yeah. But do we have commitment to get on the same page? Yes. That's really where the work comes.
Or can we have respect for where each other are at? Yes. And can we work with those differences, right? I think that's really important to understand, that we may not get on the same page, but can I be okay with your page?
Yes.
And can you be okay with my page? And can we, are these pages that we can work through together? Yeah. Right? I worked with a couple, and there were some differences of their religious beliefs. And it felt like it was going to be a deal breaker until we really broke it down and realized, you know what? Values-wise, they were very similar.
Yes.
And there was just so much fear surrounding this couple. And that when we could get clear on what their values were, all of a sudden that fear went away. Yeah. But we had to get through some of that inertia that was blocking them, right? And I really do think it took a third party to be there with them, discussing this with them, right? So I love that you're providing hope. This is going to be okay. And we may not always see eye to eye, but is your value okay? Is my value okay? And can we work together with that, right? And welcome to being married. There are going to be differences, which is often why we choose a partner. We choose people that we aren't exactly alike for a reason. We complement each other, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Lauren, is there anything else that you feel like you'd like our listener to know as they ask this question, or anything else before we end that feels important?
I think it's brave to be able to go to couples therapy before you're married. And I know it seems scary, and it's a lot of vulnerability, and it's honestly kind of opening the floodgates. When you do this before you get married, it gives you a lot to think about. And so I can understand it feels overwhelming. You're scared that you might get something pointed out that maybe you have already known about. Yes. And it's your subconscious now being exposed. Or you may not feel in alignment with your partner, and that leads you to a different answer. But really at the end of the day, you're doing yourself a very good service. You're getting yourself information, you're helping yourself feel more aligned with your values so that you can make informed decisions for yourself and your future. And to me, that's the best self-care that you can have.
Absolutely. And information is always important. And that's what this is providing. We shouldn't be afraid of it.
No.
Right? And I love that you said it's brave, because it is. I think anytime people choose to go to therapy, it's brave. Mm-hmm. It's hard to put your innermost feelings, your fears out there.
Yeah.
You know, it is a brave decision. And to do that with a person that you are planning to be together with is even more brave. So I love that you mentioned that. A couple of things that I just want to recap. That intimacy, talking about intimacy, right? Talking about partnerships. How do we see ourselves in this partnership? In life transitions, as things might change, well, how do we see ourselves, right? I love the idea of we're good, but we could be better. And part of that is information. Mm-hmm. We need information about ourselves and about our partner. And I love that you said that. We'll get more information about ourselves in this process, right? Yeah. And you said something that you feel like it's your job to provide hope. Mm-hmm. And I love that idea. As a therapist, Kathy, who is the partner at Therapeuta, she always says, I'm a hope merchant. And I love that idea. Like, I am here and I'm delivering hope to people that may not have hope, right? Mm-hmm. So, and a reminder for any couple that is interested that the couple is who we're really looking at. It's not the individuals, but the couple is our client, right, as opposed to the individuals. And that's our goal, is to help this couple become the best that they can be, right? Yeah. Really, therapy before marriage is a preventative that seems like a great idea and gives a lot of information. And when the stakes are not quite as high, right? They're high because we've committed to each other, but not quite as high as after. So really appreciate you being here, Lauren. Appreciate the insights that you've shared. And I hope this has helped our listener have some more insights around the fear around having premarital therapy, and that it's not scary, but it's a brave choice to make and to help a person make the best informed decision for their future going forward. We're thankful that you guys are here with us. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Lauren, for being here. Until next time, take care.